During the 1980s, there were many people in our state who were enthusiastically awaiting the state's centennial, our 100th birthday for the state of Washington. A young new legislator was elected from Grays Harbor County. He came to the Capitol and wanted to honor our state's maritime industry and history with their creation and the building of a new replica tall ship, the Lady Washington, the actual ship that Captain Robert Gray used when he sailed first time into Grays Harbor. And the ship was built. Craftsmen came from all over the Pacific Northwest, and pretty soon right there on the ways in Aberdeen and Hoquiam, we saw this beautiful ship emerge. Grays Harbor Historical Seaport has done us a real favor. This ship sails up and down the west coast of America, and thousands of school children have learned about our maritime history.
Prepare for fire! Prepare for fire! Fire! Fire!
Whoa!
We are really fortunate to have the Lady Washington as our state's official tall ship. She's truly one of my favorite vessels and one of my favorite places, the Lady Washington.
Each week on The Impact, we find stories that affect your life and we dig in. From schools to crime to where your taxes go, we bring in the people who make state policy and find out what's really at stake. You'll get both sides of the story and you'll hear straight from the people in power. Join us Wednesday nights at 7 and 10 or anytime online at tvw.org for in-depth coverage you won't find anywhere else.
drive down the freeway near the Columbia River in the town of Woodland, Washington, and we see that big green sign that said Hilda Klager's Lilac Gardens. And we say to ourselves, someday I'm going to stop there. Well, I would urge you to stop. It is simply an incredible spot right on the Columbia River. Hilda Klager was an immigrant from Germany who loved flowers, and she learned to hybridize lilacs at an early age. She created all kinds of new varieties and gave them to her friends and named them after her associates and some of the towns along the river. And time went by and she had Lilac Week and Lilac Days, and people would come to this little farmhouse and they'd see the lilacs all through the yard. And then disaster struck. After the war, the Vanport flood did a terrible amount of devastation along the river. She was lucky her house was saved, big trees were still in the yard, but all the lilacs washed away in the flood. But her friends came to the rescue. They called her up and they said, Hilda, we bought one from you 20 years ago and we're bringing it back, or we'll do a cutting for you, or we've got this variety or that variety. And she started again to create this Lilac Gardens. She lived to be nearly 100 years old, and after she died, associates and friends of the Garden Club took it over, and today it's one of our state's nicest attractions. Go there when the lilacs are blooming, because it is something to see and to smell and to behold. Hilda Klager Lilac Gardens, one of my favorite places. This beautiful little bay on Bainbridge Island is called Fort Blakely Harbor. It was once the site of the biggest sawmill in the world. It's a deep water harbor and had as many as 14 sailing ships in here to load lumber that went to every possible location around our globe. There was huge timber around Puget Sound, and they brought it into this harbor in log booms and then ran the logs through the mill. They were massive. My dad told me that he could hear the logs going through the mill 4 miles away. The whine of the saws was that loud.
Are there multiple companies that do panic buttons?
There is, yeah.
We may ask you about that here.
We're good to go whenever you're ready.
So, Senator, maybe we can just start with you. She's set up for the microphone. So just tell us about this bill. I know there's some technical parts, but I mean, would every school district in the state have to get panic buttons, or what would your bill?
No, so this offers a menu of items, but one of the big ones is panic buttons. So we're encouraging them to consider panic buttons as part of their emergency preparedness, because every year they're supposed to submit a report to OSPI with their emergency preparedness report. And this would include, so now this bill, actually Senate Bill 5004, would make them include one of either fans, key cards, panic buttons. I'm really hoping more will start using panic buttons. As you heard in my testimony, about 50% do have panic buttons. Some haven't been fully implemented. Not sure exactly why. They didn't give me the reasons behind that. And then some of the systems may be failing as well, or they need to be replaced already. So that was the reason why we're including that in this menu of options. So it's an or, not a must. So it's not an unfunded mandate for the schools, but it is like, hey, whenever you can, please implement this.
So it would not take any state funding. The state would not be buying these
No,
devices
it
or
would
fences?
not.
Or
No,
it would just
it would be part of their annual funding that they get that they are able to use for emergency preparedness.
Gotcha. Do you think it's going to pass? What's your sense?
Well, it passed off the Senate floor unanimously. There was no con over on the Senate floor. Everyone really liked it. And as you'll hear, we got the idea from Alyssa's Law, as you heard in my testimony earlier this morning. And you'll hear from her mom, Lori Aldaheff, who was here from Parkland, Florida, after that horrible shooting that took place in Parkland, Florida, about 15 years ago. I think 7? Okay, gosh. It was February 14th. It was Valentine's Day, so that's where I'm thinking the 14th. But so 7 years ago, and recently was the anniversary, the 7th year anniversary.
What does it say that she's here across country? She's done this, I think, 7 other states.
She has, yeah. So she is definitely the expert, and I definitely want to hear. I want you all to hear from her mainly, because I think this bill is very important, and especially when it comes to the safety of our kids in schools, because we send our kids there every day. I have kids I have grandkids now in the public school system, and I want them to be safe, and I want other students to be safe as well.
It's great that she's doing this. She doesn't have to.
No, she doesn't have to, and I love that she's keeping her daughter's legacy alive as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll pass it on to Lori.
Please. Hi, Lori. We will let you show your photo there.
Thank you.
I think it's obvious, but tell us what brings you here. You're far from home. Why are you here talking to the Washington State Legislature today?
So I'm here in Washington to help get Alyssa's Law passed, to not only honor my daughter Alyssa, who was only 14 years old when she was murdered in her English classroom on Valentine's Day in 2018, but I want to make sure that all students here in Washington are safe, that they have an emergency response plan, pushing that panic button, so that whether it's a medical emergency that we have every day in our schools, or the worst, an active shooter situation, that we can get help on the scene as quickly as possible to triage any of the victims or take down the threat. We know that time equals life, and we need to get help on the scene as quickly as possible.
And you were texting with your daughter when this was all happening?
Yes, so on that tragic day, I was texting Alyssa. I told Alyssa to run and hide, that help was on the way. but unfortunately that help didn't get there fast enough. Alyssa was in room 1216. That was the first classroom that the shooter shot through the door. Alyssa was in the direct line of fire, but she was still alive, and the shooter went down the hallway, but he came back to Alyssa's classroom and shot directly at Alyssa and Elena and Alex that were in that classroom. And Alyssa, unfortunately, was shot 8 times and was killed.
And you do think having a panic button would have saved some of those lives?
Absolutely. So the first guy, the security guy in the golf cart that saw the shooter walk onto campus with a gun bag, he knew that that was Crazy Boy. And he could have pushed his panic button, and then it's mass notification, so everybody could have locked down, get out of the view from the door, gone to the safer space, got behind something hard, and kids could have gotten out of the hallway. And so absolutely, I think lives would have been saved. And not only 17 people were murdered that day, but also 17 people were shot and wounded.
Still recovering, probably, in some cases.
Absolutely. This destroyed my community, and in 7 years now, we are still struggling. You know, there's a lot of mental health issues. We had kids that committed suicide after the tragedy, and the wounds affect us so deeply. It's so difficult. So if we can put these emergency response systems in our schools, it will not only save lives, but it will prevent future harm to communities that have to go through these school shootings, and unfortunately that we continue to have every day. Like, we have fire alarm systems in our schools. We haven't had a fire since the 1950s, but we continue to have these school shootings. So we need to put these security measures in place as a layer of school safety protection.
This law would have Alyssa's name on it, and it's the case in other states. That means a lot.
Absolutely. We passed Alyssa's law now in 7 states: New Jersey, New York, Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Utah, and Florida. And I know that every time that panic button is pushed, I know that Alyssa is saving lives.
She'd be proud of you doing this, helping her classmates and others.
Absolutely. I live for Alyssa. I'm Alyssa's voice because her voice was silenced on that horrific day. And I know she's watching and cheering me on.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. I don't know if I know you guys had some prepared comments, but do you know, does Lake Washington have these in place? Would you like to see it at your high school?
I would definitely like to see it at my high school. I think safety is the utmost concern. I go to school to learn, and as soon as it becomes a safety issue, my ability to learn and grow is stopped. And while Lake Washington High School does not have panic buttons, it does have some emergency systems in place. I definitely like to see them expanded. As while I feel safe, I know there are students who don't. And safety is a very personal thing, so people send their children to school to learn and not to survive. So
Parents are really concerned about this, obviously, and students are too, it sounds like.
yes, I definitely think so. I think that most parents are focused on maintaining safe environments and having their children learn at school to prepare themselves for their future. And as soon as there are these incidents, your future stops and your life is changed forever.
Okay, thank you. And your name?
My name is Leonor Lopez Costa.
Could you spell that?
Leonor, Leonor.
Gotcha. And your last name?
Lopez Costa, Lopes Costa.
Gotcha. And you're a senior at?
I am a senior at Lake Washington, yes.
Thank you. Either you wanted to add anything? Or?
I think she said everything. Yeah.
She was great.
Yeah.
All right. Senator, anything else?
As you heard, it's very important that we have systems in place, and times are changing. And as you heard, we have fire alarm systems in every building, and yet we haven't had a fire in a very long time. But yet we've seen an increase in school shootings. So something needs to be done. We are not immune. We've learned that already. Thank you.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
attractions.